Marvel movies are known for their incredible cast members, the jaw-dropping action, the wonderful, if sometimes unbelievable stories, and their humor. These are fun movies that give their fans a lot. There's something unexpected, and the actors always bring a little touch of something extra. But what fans might not realize is that a lot of what ends up on screen was never actually included in the script. These are unscripted moments from Marvel movies you never knew about. Warning, mild spoilers ahead. Please remember to hit that like button if you enjoy this video, then subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications. It means a lot, and that way we can always keep you up to date with anything we post. Tony Stark's death. Let's start out with a big one. The entire scene where Tony Stark died was pretty much completely unscripted. It was a pretty closely guarded secret, and since some members of the Marvel Cinematic Universe do tend to spill spoilers, this made a lot of sense. Surprisingly, Tom Holland was one of the actors that was let in on the secret, and he never let it slip. Tom said that the day they shot Tony's death, there were only a few people on set. Tom, Robert Downey Jr., obviously, Don Cheadle, Gwyneth Paltrow, and then the directors of the movie, the Russo brothers, and Marvel's president, Kevin Feige. It seems like they didn't have the scene written at all. The actors got there and they were given a wide idea of what they wanted from the scene, and then they were off. Everything else, including the final "I am Iron Man," was completely unscripted, and it ended up being one of the most heartbreaking and memorable scenes out of any Marvel movie ever. Nobody would know. One of Hawkeye's most quoted and memorable lines ever came from a joke that Jeremy Renner made when he thought they had already stopped filming. In the moment, he joked about shooting Quicksilver in the back and that no one would know. It was a pretty funny joke. Lucky for us, the cameras were actually still rolling and they caught the joke on film. And just like the rest of us, producers found the moment so funny that they decided to keep it in the movie. He's a friend from work. Thor Ragnarok was one of the Marvel movies that probably had the most unscripted lines included in the finished product. But what you might not know is that one of the funniest unscripted moments didn't come from one of the actors, but rather from a kid that was on set. In the scene, the Hulk is sent out to fight with Thor, but Thor gets excited because he knows him and doesn't believe that he would hurt him. On the day that this scene was shot, there was a child from the Make-A-Wish Foundation visiting the set, and he gave the idea for Thor to say the iconic line. He's a friend from work, made it into the final cut, and it quickly became one of the best moments from the movie. Tom Holland forgot his blocking. This one came about from a mistake that turned into a very funny moment. During Captain America Civil War, Tom Holland was still a pretty young and inexperienced actor. In the scene, Tony Stark visits Peter Parker for the first time, and he was supposed to sit down on the bed next to Peter. But in the final scene, Tony stands in front of the bed for a moment, and then he tells Peter, "I'm gonna sit here, so you move the leg." It turns out that Tom forgot the blocking, and instead of cutting and taking it from the top, RDJ just went with it and stayed in character. It worked so well, and I think it made the scene even better. Dropping the orb. In Guardians of the Galaxy, Peter Quill is supposed to hand a powerful orb to the Collector, but when he goes to hand it over, he almost drops it. Everyone thought that this was a mistake that was just kept in and worked for the laid-back character. Even the director of the movie, James Gunn, thought that it was just a slip-up that ended working. He said that he believes Chris's story, that it was intentional, about 90%. But afterwards, Chris Pratt has said that the moment was completely intentional, and he decided to just go with it instead of asking for permission to improvise. Happy mistake or planned gag, either way, this scripted moment is great, and it was even a moment that showed this character's personality even more. The war chants. In the big fight scene from Avengers Infinity War, some of the warriors from Wakanda start to chant a war cry that is awesome to see. But what you might not know is that these cries were not in the script. Winston Duke randomly started to chant, and Chadwick Boseman responded with another cry that he led. It made so much sense in the scene that it's almost impossible to believe that it wasn't always included in the script. Grabbing Cap's peck. In Captain America: The First Avenger, Steve Rogers goes from the small, kinda weak guy with a massive heart to the Captain America we all know and love today. His transformation is pretty incredible in the show, and it makes sense that he blows Peggy Carter away when she first sees him shirtless after his transformation. She looks pretty mesmerized, and seemingly in awe, she reaches out and touches his pec. It just shows how much shock she was feeling from how much he changed. But the surprising part was that touching his pec was completely improvised, and Haley Atwell just instinctively did it. And who could blame her? I'm guessing most of us would just automatically reach out if we were faced with Captain America's pecs. After that first moment, everyone loved it, and they did a few different takes with her touching him over and over again. It's a tough job, but someone has to do it. And it was really what made the scene memorable, even today. Peter gets snapped. Avengers Infinity War is jam-packed full of heartbreaking moments, and it seems like many of them were actually improvised. One of these unscripted scenes was the moment just before Peter Parker starts to disintegrate and turn into dust. It turns out that the only direction that Joe Russo, the co-director, gave Tom Holland was to act like he didn't want to go. And that's exactly what he did. He grabs onto Tony and says he doesn't feel so good, and then he keeps repeating that he doesn't want to go. Up until the moment that he turns into dust and floats out of Tony's reach, it is super sad and was beautifully acted by both Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. One of the fan theories I've heard makes the scene even more heartbreaking. Someone says that Peter's spidey sense probably told him that things were going wrong, so he knew he was going. Either way, it was an incredibly well-acted and improvised scene from Tom, and one that breaks fans' hearts even now. Get help! In Thor Ragnarok, Loki and Thor are in trouble, so Thor starts to ask for help for his brother. He screams that his brother is dying and that they need help. Then he throws Loki at the guards. It was seriously funny, and not just because it was a moment where Loki got the short end of the stick for once instead of tricking Thor, but that entire gag was made up by Chris Hemsworth right on the spot and improvised by the two actors. And Tom Hiddleston is said to have just went with it and played off of it. I must say it sounds pretty wild that Chris Hemsworth just threw Tom without warning, but it does sound like a fun set. A cuddle in the car. In Spider-Man Homecoming, Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. were in the car together when Tony Stark leaned over to open the door for Peter Parker. Tom thought it would be a funny moment to just start hugging Robert. But of course, this is the brilliant RDJ and he's never caught off guard. So he played it up right away, saying that he isn't leaning in for a hug, that they weren't there yet. And according to Tom, you just heard the entire set laugh. It's great to know that these two actors who have such a great relationship in the movies seem to be just as great in real life. Cap's beard. It's pretty much a fact that Thor is one of the funniest characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and just one of the best characters ever in my opinion. During Avengers Infinity War, Thor makes a massive entrance onto the Battle of Wakanda. But true to character, he starts to fight, but also starts cracking jokes right away. He jokes about the trees, and then he spots Captain America, and without missing a beat, he calls him out on copying his beard. Killmonger and his auntie. The moment that Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger meets Angela Bassett's character for the first time is one of the biggest moments where we get to know his personality. His greeting of, "Hey auntie," is pretty iconic, and it was completely improvised. It's important to respect your elders, no matter the circumstances. Odin banishes Thor. The first Thor movie has stayed a favorite among Marvel fans, and it's easy to see why. The cast was packed with incredible actors, including Anthony Hopkins as Odin, Thor and Loki's father, and it was a good thing that they used this legendary actor for the role, especially if you consider that one of the most important scenes from the movie was completely unscripted and improvised. They left the scene where Odin banishes Thor completely up to Anthony Hopkins, but this was a really good move on their part because the scene came out really well. Tony Stark always eating. Robert Downey Jr. did not feel the need to wait for lunchtime to get a snack. During his time on the Avengers, he would hide snacks all over the set, so that when he was hungry, he could have easy access to get a bite even while they were shooting a scene. So in the scene where Tony Stark randomly offers Cap a snack, this was completely unscripted. There are a lot of awesome unscripted moments in Marvel movies, and these are just a few of them. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.